G'day, g'day, g'day. It is Andy here from Andy's World Journeys. Please like, share and subscribe. Sorry, I'm just copying another YouTuber there who starts all videos like that. Today, it's CovidCam episode 5, I think. And anyway, what we've got is we're gonna hit up a friend of mine, friend of the blog, and that is Tim Blight from Urban Duniya. He runs a great blog and has lots and lots of YouTube stuff that's awesome. So we're going to go and have a bit of a Skype chat with him, which is going to be today's CovidCam, to see how other people are doing, out there in this time of the coronavirus. So please bear with me while I give him a buzz. Here we go again.
Hello.
Mr. Tim.
Yes, Mr. Andrew. I can hear you.
Fantastic. And welcome to the CovidCam episode 5, which is today's episode. I'm going to see if I can start recording. Okay. Can you still see and hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you for having me here.
No, it's my pleasure. How have you been, Tim?
I have been well, thank you. I have to say I'm pretty thankful to be happy, healthy, locked down.
Yes. Well, we're all experiencing bizarre and strange times.
That's right.
And how have you been affected by the lockdown? How's your life changed?
It's been, well, I mean, I'm someone who likes to go out and, sort of be out and about in the city and obviously traveling. And it's been quite, I don't know, it's been quite strange. But then at the same time, it's sort of, I've managed to get used to it pretty quickly. I also teach English, as the English is a second language, and a lot of that has moved online, and that's quite challenging to teach online, especially language teaching online. I think is like a very sort of, it's quite particularly challenging. So so far so good, and I've been using the time to get a lot of other stuff done, which has been nice, productive.
What other things have you been doing?
So I'm currently working on the 3rd edition of my Pakistan Traveller Guide.
Oh.
And, and I was hoping to get that out, like to have it published in November of last year. And then that date got pushed back to January and then March. And a whole bunch of things conspired that it was quite difficult for me to get any of that done. And I have got more done in the past 2 weeks than I have in the previous I had in the previous 6 months.
So for anyone who's interested, Tim's talking about this book right here, Pakistan Traveller.
Thanks.
Which I just happened to have handy.
Yes. Here's one I prepared earlier.
I didn't actually prepare this earlier. I just have them. I've got books above my screen and on a little shelf here, and it just happens to be one of them. So hold your horses if you're looking for a copy of Pakistan Traveller, because there's a 3rd edition on the way.
That's right. I don't think anyone will be heading to Pakistan anytime soon, unfortunately. But
what about you? Have you had to curtail any travel plans in 2020?
Well, I mean, yes and no. So I was planning to go to Sydney, where I'm originally from, over the Easter weekend, and that didn't end up happening. But I mean, that was no major loss. In September, I was planning to go to Europe with my family. That hasn't been cancelled yet, but I mean, it's just a matter of time. The only reason we haven't cancelled it yet really is because the airlines haven't cancelled it, but that's the only thing that we're waiting for. And I am planning to head to Pakistan at the end of the year. I was originally planning to go there after Europe, but now it looks like if I could get there in maybe October, November, then I might head there directly rather than going to Europe. But I mean, obviously, look, I'm sitting here in April saying this, and who knows what the future holds. If you had told me 2 months ago that all this was going to happen, I probably would have laughed. So
Yeah, it's probably been a lot more dramatic than anyone thought it was going to be, hasn't it?
yes, definitely. Although not necessarily out of the realm. Like we've been warned for a very. I'm not going to go a bit philosophical here, but we have been warned for such a long time that something like this was possible, and that a superbug was like a real possibility, and that this is what would happen. And I mean, it's not as if it hasn't happened in the past. I mean, there have been pandemics in the past, so I think it's just that sort of our generation, are very lucky to have been born in a time where we've gotten so far and not had to live through one.
Well, they say it's a 1 in 100 years event.
Yeah.
So let's hope so.
Hope it's the last one for a while as well.
Yeah, and it's interesting, because I think we've had a few possibilities that could have turned into something like this with Ebola and SARS and things like that, and they didn't go as big as people thought they might. And then all of a sudden this one has. And I think I just checked the figures before I started this chat, and we are just under 2 million worldwide cases.
Yeah.
So...
Well, I mean, look, we keep hearing that, I mean, this is unprecedented. I think what's unprecedented I think what people are referring to is the worldwide shutdown, because we haven't sort of, in the world being globalized in the way that it is now, for it to be shut down is unprecedented. But, I mean, having a pandemic is not necessarily unprecedented.
No, that's right.
Yeah.
Well, I wonder if some of the shutdowns happened because of just because of politics, and it just got to the point where it seemed so overwhelming for leaders of countries that they couldn't not do anything about it because it would cost them their political careers. I don't know.
I tend to be quite cynical when it comes to politicians and politics generally, and I find it very difficult to believe that many politicians in the world do things out of the kindness of their heart. So I tend to think that generally that's the reason why most politicians do things. Like I don't think it's so much that a lot of government officials are lying awake in bed at night sort of worrying about how many people are going to die. I think it's more that a lot of them are lying awake in bed at night worrying about, well, if that many people die, how will that be presented to the public and how will that reflect on me? Unfortunately. Yeah.
Well, either way, at least it means they have to do something, I guess. So,
yeah.
That's, at least there was some action on it this time. And, I mean, here in Australia, we're down to sort of less than 50 cases a day at the moment, which is down from about 2 weeks ago. I think we had our worst day, which was about 600, I think.
Okay, 600 new cases.
Yeah, 600 new cases. So they're saying sort of that the lockdown's working.
Yeah.
We just had it extended for another month in Victoria to the 11th of May. Who knows what happens after the 11th of May. But then you also hear like the Chief Medical Officer and even Scott Morrison, the Prime Minister, talking like a long game, a 6-month game. So it's really hard to know what they mean by that, if they mean all restrictions for 6 months or, because I mean, when you look at it, you have to presume that the last thing that's going to happen is international travel. That's right down, because I don't want people, if it's still floating around in 6 months' time in other countries, then they don't want to take the risk of it coming back and starting again in Australia, presuming that, you know, within a few months we've sort of conquered this thing.
Yeah, I think that probably, I think it definitely will be hanging around in other countries for the long term. I don't think that it will be easy to stamp out. I mean, I can't think of a single country that has stamped it out, except for, I mean, you know, there's talk about that China has slowed the spread, but it's still, as far as I know, hasn't stopped it completely. So, I mean, I don't see it going away anytime soon, I guess, in the absence of, say, a vaccine. I'm not a medical expert, I'm not an epidemiologist, but I simply don't understand how that could happen. I do think that, I mean, maybe the lockdown will be eased in Australia. I think that, I mean, they have talked about the long game. They have said, you know, possibly 6 months. I think it would be maybe 6 months at sort of during the 6 months that the lockdown would be eased gradually. But I don't see international travel opening up again, at least until next year, to be honest. If it did, I think it would happen in the form of that perhaps people who arrive back into Australia are are quarantined on a compulsory basis, and or that they are tested, which is something interesting. I mean, is there a lack of testing kits? Are the testing kits not accurate enough? I mean, surely it would be possible to sort of introduce a regime of testing for everyone who enters Australia, and you know, people who are safe, so to speak, or healthy, could then just get back on with their life, and the people who aren't could then be quarantined or treated. I don't know enough about it. I don't know whether the testing kits are accurate enough. I don't know whether there are enough testing kits to implement that.
I don't think it's. I think it is a numbers game with the testing kits, and I also think one of the issues is just that it takes time to get the results back, and I think the reason that it takes the time that it does is mostly because of you know, the labs can only process so many tests at once.
Sure. Yeah.
I think, but you know, I mean, I'm not.
That's the thing. You know,
I'm not Dr. Fauci, so.
Yeah, it's so hard to know, especially based on, you know, there is so much information out there, and there's so much disinformation out there as well.
Yeah, some crazy talk. So what does that mean then? I mean, if you're not thinking that, you know, does that? I guess that means that any international travel for you is going to be a wait and see sort of situation this year, because.
Yeah, definitely, and I think that's probably good advice for everyone. I mean, if only that sort of you avoid disappointment. I mean, I don't want to sort of plan something and be really excited about it for it to be cancelled, even if I get my money back. So. Yeah, I think wait and see is a sensible policy.
Yeah, I think even interstate travel at the moment is looking like it's a little way away. So
yeah,
I'm not planning on going anywhere till June next year now. So
yeah,
just holding my horses and not trying to get away with get too carried away with the idea of travelling somewhere, because.
Exactly.
Who knows? And who knows if there's a second wave, or if, you know, I mean, the hope is that by June next year that there is a vaccine for this thing. They're saying 12 to 18 months, so.
It's so hard to know, though. I mean, you know, I think, wasn't it when sort of another epidemic began in the 1980s that they said that there would be a vaccine available within sort of 2 years or something, and I mean.
There still isn't.
There still isn't. So this is now 30, 40 years later. So, I mean, I don't want to be pessimistic about this, but I also think it's important to be realistic. And I think that that's something really important for policymakers and for, I think even for the general public as well. I mean, it's not a nice discussion to weigh up the economic impacts against, the health impacts on people's lives. But I guess, you do wonder if there would be a point where people are going to grow tired of the lockdown and the implications of the lockdown being, sort of potentially economic recession and, accumulating government debt and so on. I mean, right now, it seems that a lot of people are just, quite happy to be locked down and to take care of this thing, and that's fine. I just wonder how long the public's patience for this kind of thing is, and if it turns out that a vaccine isn't a year away, that it's much further away. I just wonder how much people are prepared to weather. I don't know. I guess time will tell.
I don't think we can live in lockdown the way we're living at the moment for more than a couple of months, maybe 3.
Yeah, I would tend to agree, and I think that, I mean, like I said, look, I don't, it's not nice to say the economic impact needs to be weighed up against people's lives, but eventually, if the lockdowns go on long enough, there will come a time that people will sort of say, okay, like, look at the unemployment, look at this, look at, how many businesses are closing down and so on. And I just wonder if there will come a point where people will sort of tire of that.
Oh, there's no doubt that will happen.
Yeah.
What was I going to say? No, it's gone.
No.
It was very thoughtful and insightful, though.
I'm going to have a glass of water, so... Got one too? Oh, there you go, to health. How are you coping, Andy? How are you coping with the lockdown and everything?
Well, I'm still going to work because I work in disability. So, apart from the fact that I've lost a few shifts, so there's been a bit of an economic impact. My wife's lost most of her shifts, so that's the main impact, I think. And as I said, sort of travel plans I've had to cancel a trip to the Philippines. I've had some pretty good news on the refund front. I'm going to get most of them. Well, I'm going to get a little over half the money back.
Okay, good.
Because I booked with 3 different airlines, and Scoot have come to the party, and they're basically cash refunding all flights. Scoot.
Wow.
And as a budget, because I think they were all budget airlines, yeah. And I had an internal Filipino airline, Air Swift. They've said that they're going to fully refund. It's going to take a long time, I think, 12 to 14 weeks to get the money back. But at this stage, that's not a major issue.
Sure.
And so the only one is Cebu Pacific. And that was our return flight, and that was over $1,000, and that's gone into a travel fund.
And was that the flight from Singapore to Manila or to?
No, that was from Palawan to Manila to Melbourne.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So yeah, it was about $500 per person. So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Cebu Pacific are a fairly big airline, so hopefully, I mean, sure, it's in a travel fund, but hopefully, that does happen and you're able to use that at some point in the future.
How many airlines do we think are going to survive? And
well, I was sort of...
Let's presume that in 6 months this is somewhat over control and lockdowns in most countries are wound back by the end of the year.
Yeah.
What does international travel in 12 months' time look like? You know, how many airlines are still up there and flying? Are people prepared to go travelling? I actually don't think people will be that scared to go back and travel. I think it'll take a little time. I think there'll be an initial, like, you know, the day that the international flights are back up and running, I don't think there's going to be a huge rush. But I do think we'll give it a couple of years that people will be taking holidays again.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with that. I think it's just sort of a matter of time that, I mean, people will get back to it, and people will realize that, you know, they are able to travel, if not everywhere, then at least to certain destinations and not need to worry about it.
There may be the attitude that well, you never know when another one of these things is going to happen. So I'm gonna enjoy and do the things that I want to do while I have the chance.
I think, yeah. Look, I mean, I think there's a bit of that, but I think that applies to a section of society. But as someone who has lived in Pakistan for quite some time and written a travel guide to Pakistan, I also know that the public generally are quite risk averse. So, you know, yes, thank you very much again for the plug. Yeah. You know, I also know that people are quite risk averse, and you know, there are people who still tell me that they wouldn't travel to Pakistan because of what happened on 9/11, and I mean, that's almost 20 years ago. Yeah, I know. Look, you know,
What did happen in Pakistan on 9/11? Because I don't remember anything.
Yeah, I know, but you know, this is what I mean. You know, like there are a lot of people who are, you know, and look, I'm not saying that, you know, people who don't go to Pakistan are, you know, like that really should, or, you know, go there or anything. I mean, I'm not making that argument, but I also think that there will be different sections of society that react in different ways. There will be some people who swear off international travel ever again, and then there will be people who sort of have this carpe diem attitude of, we have to travel, let's just, you know, make the most of it.
What do you say? You and I, as soon as this thing's over, we'll take a cruise.
You know, look, I've never been one for cruises anyway, and not only because I get seasick, because I mean, I could take tablets for that, but I simply have no desire to be on a floating apartment block in the ocean, and you know, much less one where I don't have a choice of restaurants. And
but you do. You have, like, I'm sure they have like at least 3 or 4 per, depending on the size of the ship.
Yeah, no, not happening. So no, I've never been one for cruises, and you know, pretty much when all of this happened, I was just kind of like, this is pretty much why I don't want to be on a cruise.
Well, so many of Australia's cases are directly related to one bloody ship.
Yeah.
Which is
a
real worry.
It said, you know, can you imagine basing your entire political, you know, like the past 20 years of, you know, political policy on stopping the boats, and then you actually failed to stop the one that really mattered? Like,
oh well.
Yeah, I mean, anyway, it is what it is, and it looks like it's going to be something that is here for some time, and we're just going to have to learn to live with it.
Oh, we are, day by day. Every day we try to find something else to do with our time at home.
Okay, right. I was going to coffee last weekend, which was, you know, sort of my basic bro moment, where I, you know, sort of, you've seen the coffee with the milk underneath, and then it's all whipped and piled up on top and everything. So
isn't that called a frappuccino?
No, it's not. It's cold. The frappuccino is cold. This is hot.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm not a coffee drinker, Tim. So.
You at all?
No.
Oh God. Well, Melbourne's wasted on you then.
Yeah, no, I don't. I genuinely don't drink.
When I said went to Sydney.
I genuinely don't drink coffee at all.
Okay, I did not know that.
Yeah, so I'm not up with coffee trends. I'm not. I just always found it. I mean, it's not that I've never drunk coffee, but I always found it a bit harsh on the stomach, and then I absolutely couldn't get a second of sleep when on days where I'd had a coffee. So I went through a very brief coffee drinking phase when I was at university some 18 years ago or something, around about then, 19 years ago. So
yeah. Well, yeah, not a problem. I will make you a Dalgona, not coffee, something, chocolate.
okay, hot chocolate.
I've been told that it works with cocoa, so I will attempt one with cocoa today.
No worries. Well, Tim, I think we better call this a day, because we've already gone 25 minutes.
Yeah, and we've moved on to Instagram trends already, so I think it's
is that? No worries. You take care, sir. Thank you very much for joining CovidCam today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. You take care as well, and we'll be in touch.
No worries. And thank you for joining us. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and join in next time. This has been CovidCam, and may the journey never end.